What's goody? Hey, what's good, you guys? Um, I got an article here about the food supply attack, which is pretty much just a summary about how the U.S. government is using its overarching power to raid and shut down Golden Valley farms. Well, not just Golden Valley farms, but farms across the United States. So this article here is about a particular incident with a local independent meat producer who was supplying meat and other farm products to his community. So, Samuel Fisher, owner of Golden Valley Farms, is being persecuted by the United States government all because his family raises their own animals, slaughters the meat on the farm, and sells that meat to the community. Mr. Fisher is a mild mannered father of five who owns and operates a 100-acre cattle farm in the heartland of Virginia. The farm began 5 years ago selling milk, cream, and yogurt before they began to butcher and sell their own meats. Now the farm is under attack by government operators who are trying to shut down the farm and stop the man from feeding his own family. Amish farmer who feeds hundreds of people in the community under attack. This ain't right. We had all this meat. We worked hard to get in the freezer to process it and to package it. The next day, they came with a search warrant, went through everything, the house, every building, the barn. They just raided through everything. We can't touch it. We can't sell it. We can feed our family. We can't give it away. Can't feed it to the dogs. Can't do anything with it. They just took it to the dump. All right. So a little backstory on Mr. Fisher. He raises and butchers meat on site and sells it directly to customers, whom are mostly located within his local community. His farm feeds about 500 people therein. The Golden Valley Farms membership program allows individuals to own part of Fisher's herd of 100% grass-fed golden Guernsey cows. Without warning, an inspector with the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services paid Golden Valley Farms a visit on June 14th. That day, the government decided to penalize Mr. Fisher for selling meat that was not processed by a USDA inspected facility. And this is just one of the many ways that government uses its strong arm to force people into giving up ownership of their personal assets under the guise of the law or under their alphabet organizations such as USDA. So the innocent farmer is raided, his property is seized for crime of feeding his family and community. When Fisher began selling meat, he went to a USDA inspector and sent the meat to the designated USDA facilities. The butchering and processing through the USDA was slow and cumbersome. Mr. Fisher was unable to ship the required quantity of animals at one time and could not operate economically and in a timely manner to satisfy his customers. By the time the meat comes back, you might be running low on certain cuts of meat, but what you order from the USDA was not accurate to that. You might run out of some stuff long before other stuff because you had to order it so far in advance. His customers prompted Mr. Fisher to process the meat on the farm without a USDA inspection. When the USDA surveyed the customer base, the majority responded that they wanted the meat processed on the farm without interference from the government. Um, and this may be because when something is processed off site and you're not there to oversee or to supervise the processes that are happening therein, there are cruel-hearted people out there who could contaminate, sabotage, or honestly, who knows what else. And the article goes on to quote from Mr. Fisher that you have to keep going because people are depending on this stuff as their medicine. I want this world to have the opportunity of finding real food. And that's, food straight from the source, food straight from the farm, which is less processed, less additives, less preservatives, and less any other chemicals that are added in an off-site facility, maybe in a USDA inspection facility or factory, or just a packaging site, which he is right to do. People should have the right and the ability to feed themselves. But in this world, that's a crime because the powers that be would rather have that you lean on them for survival, which is going to like increase and increase as time goes on, which is why they're like buying or taking by force a lot of these farms in order to take control of the food supply. Fisher said that the lockdowns in 2020 forced him to wait 8 to 12 months to schedule the butchering process. At that time, his customers were stocking up on meat as stores were running out of supply. All of a sudden, we had a lot of need for meats, Fisher said. Well, there was no option talking to USDA facility. So that's when the trigger was pushed to do it ourselves. Customers were buying mostly from our own meat, not so much from the USDA. The pandemic came and there was no other option but either not have it available or process it ourselves. So we started processing it ourselves, which I do not blame because a lot of the times, like I said before, when you process these meats at USDA facilities, they add hormones in it, such as estrogen, which uh, which pretty much offset your emotional balance, offset your mental stability, um, and just make you add a lot of weight, which is why most of you men have titties anyway, and thick thighs, looking like a woman. um, the article goes on to say we put additions to the building and made a processing room, and we certainly like it now. All right, the article goes on to mention that Mr. Fisher's customers prefer that the meat be processed on site. They own part of the business, they own some of the herd, Fisher explained. My thinking was we can butcher their cows, process it, and sell it to them. He told the state all of this, but the state said no, there's no way around that. You can't do that. Um, how dare you supply yourself of your own food? How dare you not lean on us instead? You know? Fisher said the inspectors asked permission to search the farm. Mr. Fisher denied their request and they told him we'll be back and left. They said that they'll be coming back for that ass. The state targeted his farm from there forward. They came in, took pictures, and lied to the courts, claiming that Mr. Fisher was selling raw meat and was a public health risk. Yeah, I'm sure. When the state returned to his farm, they raided the freezers and packed a U-Haul truck full of their meat. That is daylight robbery, bro. That's daylight robbery. Mr. Fisher was ordered not to feed anyone again, not even his dogs or his own family. Not the dogs. Nah, just kidding. None of these customers have ever gotten sick from his products, and many depend on the products for their health and food security. And so now they got to go to their average local grocery market, which is full of meats injected with hormones, with preservatives, with carcinogens, with water, with processed sugars, with salt. And that's really the public health risk. Anyway, the article goes to conclude that this didn't matter to the all powerful state. When Mr. Fisher continued to feed his family and sell food to his community, the state came in with criminal charges and seized his farm. He now has no choice but to fight back against a rogue government. So this was just a follow up to the previous video that I published about government organizations arming up with military grade weaponries, guns, flash grenades, and us speculating what they were using them for. Well, Exhibit A, this is one of the things that they were using them for. It's like strong arm independent farmers or independent food suppliers into yielding or giving in to their demands, into taking what's rightfully owned by another party, and making sure that the people or the public have no chance of fighting back. And this is just a story, among hundreds, if not thousands, across the country. This is happening a lot lately, especially not just governments, but more so corporations. But with the corporation aspects, they're buying out the farmers. Well, I'd rather say they're manipulating markets because of their interest or their demand in the farmlands. And because, well, they're a corporation in the first place, they're able to like offer prices way higher than the market bid. So in turn, this shuts out other local farmers or independent farmers or small farmers trying to expand or trying to like just become entrepreneurs. And so yeah, the corporates buy out the land, and in the end, they own majority of the land. And in turn, down the years down the line, they'll be able to have that much power over the food supply, and they will. And when that does happen, they're not going to use the farmlands to produce food, rather halt production, in turn dropping the food supply. In turn, there'll be mass food shortages, and they'll probably blame it on stuff like climate change or war, um, or overpopulation. And yeah, like I said before, when that happens, there'll be lines going around community blocks of people lining up for food rations per se. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you will be getting whatever the grocery or whatever the government sanctions you to have. This is just the first part of a two-part video, and I'll be back real soon. Bill Gates might be a tech billionaire, but he and his wife Melinda French Gates, who are in the process of divorcing, are also two of the largest private farmland owners in the United States. And that's it. That's the intro of the video. I I don't gotta say anymore. That's it. Let that sink in, man. Like, isn't this crazy to hear? Like a man or a couple like this owning so much land in the United States, land dedicated to producing foods and produce. And I haven't even been making these videos for that long, but since I started, man, Bill Gates has definitely been the most consistent name appearing in all of the articles that I read. And let me tell you guys, man, there isn't a single wicked thing that this man does not have his hand in. You know, he's everywhere doing this. Recent reports detailing the extent of Gates' land ownership have prompted criticism from some environmental advocates and farmers who say there seems to be a contradiction between his public environmental advocacy and his personal investment strategy. Hmm. Others have speculated the farmland purchases may be a part of the billionaire's overall climate efforts. Bill Gates has said there's no connection either way, but the new details on the purchases and the discussions surrounding them serve as an important reminder that billionaires can store their massive wealth in all sorts of unexpected places, and that there can often be a tension between the personal investments and their more publicized philanthropic work. And that's how you see through them, man. That's how you know that these people are liars. They're two-faced, and they always have wicked ulterior motives. Uh, they're never consistent in the things that they say. Whatever they say, their ideals, their beliefs, their opinions, it always contradicts with their actions. And this is just another example of that, you know. So on Tuesday, the NBC News reported that Gates had acquired more than 269,000 acres of farm in the United States over the past 10 years. He's been doing this low key. Oh, he's been subtle with it. He's been slick. Those purchases, made with the help of the Washington based firm Cascade Investment and a number of shell companies, include farmland in nearly 20 states that cultivate vegetables such as carrots, soybeans, and potatoes, some of which end up in McDonald's French fries. These details come after the agriculture outlet The Land Report reported in January that tech billionaire and his wife were the country's top private farmland owners in the country. An NBC News analysis also identified Gates as the largest farmland owner in the United States. And let me tell you guys, this is not happenstance. This is not random. the tech billionaire, one of the United States' most wealthiest men, just also happens to be, or just also happens to own the most private farmland. Guys, this is not happenstance. This is not random. This all comes together. This is just a piece in a huge puzzle, man. There's an ulterior motive here. There's an ulterior motive. This man has his hand in everything, in digital currency, in shady cryptocurrency exchanges, in private farmlands, in funding research facilities that produce vaccinations, that produce viruses, that research gain of function. What else does he have his hand in? He has his hand in genetically modified food production. Man, this guy's hand is everywhere, man. This guy's hand is everywhere, and he's just on camera, bro. Like he's one of the few ones that show their face in public. Like there are hundreds of more from elite families that are that own and that invest in dealings as shady as he does. We just don't know who they are. So this article continues that almost 300,000 of acres is a lot of land for one family or a private individual to own, but it's still just a small part of the estimated 911 million acres of farmland in the United States. While Gates appears to be one of the largest private farmland owners in the country, he's far from alone in wanting to incorporate farmland into his investing strategy. As Mother Jones recently reported, other large financial firms have sought to purchase agricultural land too, even if they have no involvement in the day to day farming operations. Land Report, the outlet that named Gates the top private farm owner, notes several other families that claim well over 100,000 acres. You see, him and his cronies are at it, man. It's not just him. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I guess they're congregating and aligning themselves with the agenda to eventually have the majority hold over the United States' food production. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that about 30% of farmlands is rented out by owners who serve as landlords and aren't involved in farming, like Gates. All this is to say, it shouldn't be surprising that Bill Gates, one of the wealthiest people in the world, makes investments to serve his own financial interests. It's a good investment, according to Jonathan Lodick, a farmer and the policy director for the Center of Rural Affairs. It's smart, it's stable, and especially over the past couple decades, it seems to be going up. Still, Gates' ownership has attracted particular attention because the billionaire has tried to make a name for himself in climate advocacy. Gates is currently promoting a book on the subject and has positioned himself at the and the Gates Foundation as a leader in what the future of agriculture should look like, especially in regards to technology. One Georgia farmer and environmental advocate, John Quarterman, told NBC that while he expected the Gates would encourage more sustainable practices after buying farmland nearby, his acquisition of that land didn't change much. And the National Farmers Union has suggested that the growing number of non farmers like Gates buying up farmland and renting it out could lead to practices that hurt the environment. Short-term farmers who rent land are less likely to take long-term consecutive conservation steps. The organization argues, and non-farmer owners don't have the experience to understand the importance of protecting natural resources. Others have floated the opposite idea, that Gates' massive investment in farmland might have a direct relationship to his other climate efforts. Newsweek, for instance, recently suggested his land ownership may be connected to his investment in climate change, agricultural developments, and impossible foods, though it didn't offer much support for that premise. While Bill Gates has previously tried to separate his foundation work on climate, his while Bill Gates has previously tried to separate his Gates Foundation work on the climate from his private investments, Cascade Investments has defended its record on sustainability. In response to criticism, a spokesperson for Cascade Investment emphasized that it had enrolled all its farmland in a program by Leading Harvest, a nonprofit that releases standards for sustainability focused on biodiversity, conservation, and soil. Cascade plans to continue to evaluate and implement new initiatives that will improve the overall sustainability of its farmland portfolio. So, more broadly, Gates and other wealth buyers of farmland have also been criticized for contributing to the concentration of land ownership. Because they can casually make higher bids than what local farmers can afford, fewer people end up owning their own farmland. As University of New Mexico professor Nick Estes wrote for The Guardian in April, this results in a greater push for monocultures and more intensive industrial farming techniques to generate greater returns, while indigenous peoples and small farmers are more cautious with the use of land. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about in the previous video. What happens is that you have these rich people, right? They come to the market demanding land, inflating the prices, and eventually pricing out the smaller guys, more independent farmers who can't really compete with the billionaires' bidding price. And yeah, logic serves. The seller's always going to sell to the highest bidder. The issues at play go beyond what pieces of land Bill Gates has bought. People tend to look either for the salvation story, he's doing this to save the planet, or they look for the opposite. It's just another greedy landowner. Um, or you're like me, a step further. He's not just a greedy landowner. He plans on taking control of majority of the U.S.'s farmlands in order to influence or in order to transition into a shorter food supply. Anyway, Bruce Sherrick, an agriculture professor at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, told Recode. Sherrick, who is in on the board of Leading Harvest, says that Gates owned farms Gates owned farms are taking a positive step by following leading harvest standards. Gates himself made a point to differentiate his climate advocacy and his investments. In a Reddit AMA in March, the billionaire seemed to try to separate his climate advocacy and his personal investment when asked about his wealth of land. My investment group chose to do this. It's not connected to climate. The agriculture sector is important, he said in the post. Yeah, what's important about it, Bill? What's so important about it? What are you trying to do? Um, but the article concludes, but whatever Gates might wish, many observers can't quite separate the two things. For them, Bill Gates, the environmentalist, is also Bill Gates, the commercial farmland owner. And they think the two roles are connected, even if Gates doesn't consider them to be. And that's that for this article. And the second part of this video. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys cold, hard facts when it came to farmland in the United States being passed over to billionaires. Not just Bill Gates, also other unknown, unfaced billionaires. Corporations are buying farmlands as well. And pretty soon, the prices of foods are going to hike, and it's mostly going to be because of them. And they're going to lie to us, telling us that the food shortage is because of war or because of overpopulation or because of climate change. No, um, they own they own the farmlands, and they're just not producing anything with it. You guys stay observant, man. You guys stay observant. Keep praying to the Most High for truth, wisdom, and knowledge every single day. Read the scriptures, practice faith, practice humility, and do your best to practice righteousness, man. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.